Bam! MC is in the house. What's up, folks? My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. As you guys jump on, do me a favor, just let me know that you could hear me, okay? I was having some technical hiccups before. I want to make sure they're resolved. So if you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up. I'm going to keep talking regardless. So hopefully it works out. But what do we got on so far? Jesse, what's going on, brother? Good to see you as usual. All right. Jesse says that the audio is good. All right. So before I get into today's content, let me just take care of the housekeeping, they call it. If you guys are not getting my email, make sure you go to masterchimletter.com and sign up, put your email in there. I send you an email every single day, and it is free, and I talk about some cool stuff. I let you know what's going on with me. Right now, the big thing on my docket is the PressureCon event, which is next month. I'll talk about that a little bit later on in the call. Who do we got here? Corey, what's up, brother, man? Good to see you. As usual, I'm streaming on my official Master Chim YouTube page and a couple of Facebook pages, the Justin Garcia page and the Master Chim page. So I'm glad you guys could join. You know, I use the StreamYard software, and it's pretty cool, but there's always that thing where I don't, like, even if I'm commenting here, I can't comment specifically to one person in text on one platform over another. So I'm usually doing that audibly. If you guys have questions as I'm going through, and I've been saying this the last few calls or the last few live streams because I lose the context of what people are commenting on or asking questions. Sometimes I just go for a minute and it takes me a while to get to sort of figure out, oh yeah, there's people commenting. I gotta go check on that. So if you ask a question, just put the context in the question. Jamie, what's up? My agent up in Canada. Good to see you, brother. Hope all is well. So, what are we talking about today? Well, it's probably going to come as a surprise, but I've created a list. Now, listen, I like lists. Why? They keep me on track. If you guys have been following me for any length of time, and I know, you know, Jamie, as an example, I know has been following me probably over 10 years already. But if you've been following me, you know I am fucking tangent man. I am this way, that way. I'm a big fan of stream of consciousness sort of formats, and sometimes I have to sort of reel myself in. So what I do is I sort of tether myself to a list, and it keeps me on task. I like to think, and there might be some arrogance in this, but I like to think that even my tangents have value, but sometimes they're just not relevant, even though they're valuable. So I want to keep things relevant, which is why I opt for lists when I can. I was contemplating this morning, as I do, well, what the fuck do I want to talk about today? I try to add a little nuance. I try to, you know, to be honest, I usually stay away from, and this is not good business, but this is a testament to what I feel is my commitment to my own mission. I try to stay away from a lot of the current event stuff. Because it's just so situational, and it just sort of it pigeonholes the context of what you're talking about to one application. And I think those are just, you know, to some extent, you know, useless. I'll say that they're at least limited in their value. So I try to keep things more sort of universal, first principle, you know, formulaic, you know, most of the time. So all that being said, I'm sitting there this morning and I'm like, all right, well, do I want to talk about fucking Iran and Israel and that whole, everyone's arguing over this shit as they usually do online. And no, I don't want to talk about that because it's like, what the fuck is the point? It's not a matter of everything's already been said. It's that, why would I want to look for something that hasn't been? Why do I want to say something in the first place? What's the value of that, right? And I think that's where I find myself a lot of times, because there is something of a paradox in that most of the stuff that I do is on my email and in my coaching groups and my one-on-one coaching program, or my school, the Jungle Gym, my academy. That's where the most of my work gets done. But if you guys have read Tribalnomics, there's an RPS formula. There's a C in the formula in the next iteration of Tribalnomics, by the way. But there I go on tangents. But procreation, the P of the RPS formula, means that inherent in an identity's rituals, there needs to be a ritual dedicated towards creating new alliances, right? And so for me, I have to make sure that I'm doing the thing that keeps sort of recruiting people that resonate with the stuff that I do. And I have to do it on formats, like YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, etc. I haven't been on a podcast in a while. I used to do a lot of podcasts. And no reason why I really haven't. Not that I've been asked to do a million of them and turned them down, but I really haven't put myself out there in a while. I'm just always working on something, and one of the things that I really like about this Wednesday show is that it gives me a chance to just connect with the outside world, because this is not behind a paywall or some sort of, vetting process of any sort. So it really just lets people connect with me. Aaron's here. Aaron, what's up, Aaron? She says, MC, hope you're well. And guess what? To go off topic for a sec, our girl is registered for grade 1 homeschooling starting in December. Thanks for all. That's awesome. That is awesome. I've been talking about homeschooling since I graduated high school. My mother sat next to me in my high school graduation, and I remember telling her, like it was yesterday, telling her, I will never put my kids through this bullshit, and I'm going to homeschool. Wound up writing a book. Now here I am, 4 kids, and I can't tell you how many people that I've been connected to, and I'm so glad you're part of the group now. But people who have opted for, basically controlling the programming of their children. But I appreciate that. So back on track. So for me, I host these shows, and it gives me a chance to connect. And really, as much as I create an agenda, that's really just, it's how I am. I don't want to waste time. I'm always looking to be valuable as an ally, right? So if guys are spending time with me, I want there to be a little bit of direction, a little bit of expectation even. This is what you're here for. I will say that, back in the day when I was doing the Pressure Project, I got a lot of feedback saying that, guys just like me and White Boy Pat, just shooting the shit and riffing on different topics and things like that. There's value in that. But if it's me by myself, I need a little bit more of an anchor, because I will just go all over the place in the clouds. All right. So I think I'm probably doing that right now. Jesse writes, yeah, I always look forward to Wednesday show. Right on. I appreciate it. And you're always here, which is good. It's always good when I see the regulars. It's certainly, and I'll be lying if I said it didn't motivate me on more than one occasion, where it's like, I got a bunch of stuff to do. Do I want to do that Wednesday show? And then I'm like, yeah, you know what? I got a crew that shows up for that. I'm going to go. All right. So that being said, today, all right, so the topic I decided on was why you're addicted to politics. Because one of my frustrations is how people, all they want to do is yell and argue about politics online. And I've been talking about this for a while. This isn't something new coming from me. But I guess I had the epiphany this morning. Well, I guess, why don't we just dissect that, extract that one point and make that a topic. And that's, how I designed the framework for today. So why you're addicted to politics. So I created a list, and the list, I actually had a little bit of time this morning. Well, technically I have the same amount of time every morning, but I should say I successfully allocated some time to making these banners, right? So I put these banners up. So the top 7 reasons you're addicted to politics, right? And I ordered them so it's a countdown, right? Put that little extra bit of work into it. So let's get into the list. We have number 7. You've lost contact with real world consequence. You lost contact with real world consequence. And again, these are the top 7 reasons you're addicted to politics. The problem with disconnecting from real world consequence, in Tribalnomics, I talk about keeping your feet on the floor, right? Floor being the acronym feedback loop of reality. When you lose that relationship, as my father used to say, we're so smart, we're stupid. We could lose ourselves in abstraction. We could develop, stress symptoms as a result of abstractions. We could even become so deeply integrated with our abstractions that we feel like we're actually doing something worth a shit. But the obsession you have with politics specifically is theoretical. It's abstract. It's ambiguous to some extent, nebulous, right? All the cool words that I can use to describe something that ain't worth a shit. If you're wrong, there's no death. There's no great loss. No one lives if you're right. You can't win an argument about politics. And I don't mean to reduce this to the internet, but today, I mean, realistically, that's where most of these arguments occur. Like, there is no feedback where you are investing something only to lose it. The problem while you're doing this, to be considered also, is that while you're arguing online, you are utilizing energy, if not resources more generally, maybe even more than energy, but you're utilizing it for that purpose instead of a purpose that would bring you closer to mission. So the thing about consequence in the real world is that it sort of reminds you where your path is, where you're supposed to be, right? It's the sort of hot stove scenario, right? Yeah, don't go here. Don't touch this. When you're arguing online, there really is no reason to stop doing it in the form of consequence. And that is why it is one of the reasons you're addicted to arguing about it. All right. Roderick, I haven't heard from you in a while. Good to see you, my man. He says, I'm not addicted to politics, but I do stay aware of how they affect the lives of people around me and myself, and I encourage my tribe to vote accordingly. I don't watch the news, but I stay somewhat aware. I don't argue politics with anyone. It's of zero value. Now, I agree completely, and I would add to that, right? So, arguing online is different from staying aware, different from being informed to some extent. We run into a problem, though, when we regard the information, we regard the awareness, we regard even the act of voting disproportionately to its actual effect on our life, to its actual influence on our life. I think everybody should vote. But at the same time, I don't think anybody should think that their vote is more valuable than it is. And it's it takes some time to allow this to sort of marinate, to where it's because people, they create false dichotomies, right? It's this or that, good or bad, this like on or off, in, out. Like there's a simplification that our brain sort of seeks to create, because we got a lot of shit going on, right? So the more simple things are, the easier it is to move and process stuff. A different application of the same concept. I say a man could only do a day's worth of work. He could only do a day's worth of work, but it should be done daily, right? So similar concept, well, same concept, different application. In the one with the man's amount of work, the frustration happens when they're trying to, do more than they can in the day. And the day is just an arbitrary chunk of time, but we could use that, right? It sort of sounds better, easy for people to get. If you're trying to do 2 days worth of work in a day, well, I like to say that that's impossible, right? I usually make 10 of these. That's what I could do in a day. But I need these done so badly today, I'm going to make 20. So I'm doing 2 days worth of work in one day. I obviously would say no. You're doing a half days of work in a day prior to that. It sounds like today you're going to do a day's worth of work. Because if it's possible, then it should be probable if our standards are high enough. So part of it is making sure that people don't think they could do more than a day than now. But the other part of it is to make sure you at least do that. In the case with voting, right? And that's a hot button topic for a lot of people. Oh, my vote doesn't mean anything. You know, it's a waste of time. It's just supporting the system. It's just like, okay, like, listen, and worth noting, do whatever the fuck you want, right? Like, believe me, I am not some what does Nietzsche call it? Might not be Nietzsche, but somebody I heard to say moralic acid. I think it was Nietzsche. Moralic acid. You know, I don't spread moralic acid around in my connections with people. You do whatever the fuck you want. But what I'll say is, if you don't vote, then why the need to comment on it? And I would argue the need to comment on not voting is the thing that you've substituted for actually doing something about it. Voting doesn't mean anything. Nobody should do it. Well, if that's the case, then what are you going to do? It doesn't matter. Nobody should. So why are you talking about it? Is there anything you can do? Or is there anything that can be done? The whole system needs to be overthrown. Well, why don't you do that then? Well, because I got shit to do, or because at some point it's a contradiction. I think it very easily sort of settles where it should when you just say a vote isn't worth much, but it doesn't cost much either. It doesn't take much to do it. It also doesn't do much when you do. So there needs to be that idea of proportion thrown in, right? Which I think is valuable. All right. Todd says, what's up, Todd? He says, took me long enough to get this concept. I stopped wasting energy to those outside the tribe, especially arguing with those that mean nothing to my tribe. That's right. As Kyer said, on Tom Kyer, I'm not sure everyone should vote. There are a lot of dumb people out there. They should have to pass a test, but that's not by our Constitution. And, to look at that collectively then conclude, it's like, yeah, it's any system that allows retards to vote, and they might not be, I don't know, can people that are retarded vote? I mean, like, they got the paperwork, I mean, like a lot of fucking just random feral retards running around in this fucking country. But I don't know if somebody who's got the paperwork can do it. You know what I mean? I don't know what that paperwork is, by the way, but pretty sure you guys know what I mean. Anyway, it's me thinking out loud. But yeah, that's the thing. It's like, if retards can vote, then yeah, well, voting is as valuable as a system that allows them to participate in it, right? Roderick writes, yep, voting and staying educated is in my mind a civic responsibility, but if it's taking over all your waking thoughts, then you're living out of balance. I have so many responsibilities that prioritizing politics is wasteful of my time. Yeah, and that's the thing. Prioritizing politics is for people who are politicians, right? Everybody else should never prioritize politics. They should prioritize power, right? And we'll get into that as we get into the list. But I think we're all in agreement here. I think I put out what I wanted to on that particular point. Elliot says, this is true. I stopped engaging in useless arguments online with people. That's right. Roderick says, yes, you don't have the right to really complain if you've never voted. Of course, I don't want to hear complaining either way. That's right. You're tracking, my man. Yes, we should hand out more paperwork. Right on. All right. So we got more. We're doing a countdown, right? So let's get to the next one. We're having fun, though. I like it. All right. Let's get to number 6. So this is the number 6 reason you're addicted to politics. Number 6, it lets you blame the world instead of yourself. It lets you blame the world instead of yourself. Think about it. It's the perfect excuse. You don't have to fix you. You don't have to square your shit away. Why? Because the world is broken. And because the world is broken, I don't have to change. I would do all these things, but think about how fucked up it is out there, right? I don't know if you guys remember that scene in Forrest Gump where Jenny, remember Jenny? Like Forrest ran into her at like the monument in DC, and she was with like some upstart hippie fucking, would he be a hippie? I guess it'd be like a communist or something that was complaining about the government. Like a lot of those disgruntled fucking weirdos, they're not really doing anything, but they just want to talk about how the world is broken, right? It's a lack of accountability. It's an escape. It's their fault that I'm like this, right? And it's just passing the buck, and it's such a weak position for somebody to have. I'm somebody that, if you were to tell me, like in a coaching environment, I want you to help me, I don't know, have a better, outlook on my business or my family or my home. And okay, well, what are you doing wrong? What consequences are you seeing? What sort of feedback loops are reminding you or letting you know that this work needs to be done? And you bring up that you were molested as a child. Like my, reaction is going to be, well, like what the fuck does that have to do with it? like almost like I'm going to want to tell him TMI, motherfucker. Nobody asked you about that shit. Now, obviously, I'd be, doing what I do and poking and prodding and getting him to revisit what those associations actually are, because most people are so used to sort of bringing things that are happening elsewhere, and sometimes that elsewhere is the past, and using it as the reason why they're doing what they're doing right now in front of themselves. And it just doesn't make sense. Right? If the world's broken, then how could I be fixed? That's not the way it works. In the best times of society, I'll limit it to that, or the worst times of society. In those best times and those worst times, there is also a spectrum of people who are crushing it and people who are getting crushed. So good times and bad times, there's always going to be people that are crushing it and people are getting crushed. So my whole thing is always be the one crushing it. Circumstances are going to be what they're going to be. Jamie writes, I asked Grok about the retard thing. It responded, the term clinical retarded is outdated and offensive. The preferred term is intellectual disability. Nobody let the retarded guys know that we're talking about them. They'll be offended. Like, who's the asshole that taught retarded people to be offended about the word retard? Like, talk about fucking retarded. Makes absolutely no sense. This word is now magical, the one we've always used. When you hear older people call black people colored people, you can't say colored people. Why not? Because it's racist. It's like, what does the NAACP stand for again? Oh my God. All right. So number 6, it lets you blame the world instead of yourself. I'm getting lost in my own shit here. All right, let's get back on track. So we went over number 7, which was you've lost contact with the real world consequence. Number 6, it lets you blame the world instead of yourself. Oh, this is a good one. This one's coming up. So let's get into number 5. The number 5 reason you are addicted to politics. You've been raised as a slave. You've been raised as a slave. You were taught from a young age, victim good, strength, power bad. You might not have known it in those particular terms, but how do I know that this is how people were raised? Because they tend to side with the oppressed. They tend to side with the little guy. They tend to side with the guy who is visibly suffering. And it's not because it's sort of out of some sort of loyalty. It's not because they understand necessarily the context under which this person is being oppressed. but it's because they've been taught to see themselves as being oppressed as well. Tuan Tom, we mentioned him earlier. He shared a great point once, and he gets credit for introducing this point to me. When we watch a video of somebody getting killed, somebody getting shot, stabbed, or someone getting beheaded or something like that, immediately it's like whoever's doing the killing is the bad guy in our head. I'm telling you right now that if that's how you react, you were raised to be a slave. And I don't mean slave in any literal application of it through history. I mean it in the sense of Nietzsche's master-slave morality. I mean it in the sense of you have now created a moral virtue in real-world weakness. So one of the reasons that you're addicted to arguing politics is because you think that the people you currently see suffering don't deserve it. You think somebody else is to blame other than themselves. So you identify with all these people that are acting like victims, all these people that are saying they have no power, that the world's out to get them, the government's this, the government's that. I've told you guys before, I don't argue, I don't debate like the whole racism thing anymore, but one of my favorite sort of arguments when I is at some point in the back and forth with the person who's telling me, well, because he's black or because he's brown or because he's from this country or that country, he can't succeed. At some point I go, you know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. I didn't think so before I had this argument with you, but now that you're explaining it to me, you're absolutely right. You're not strong enough to transcend these circumstances. You're not strong enough. You're not smart enough. You don't have enough of a work ethic. Whatever the attributes are, collectively, they don't give you the ability to overcome this adversity that's in front of you. You're absolutely right. I thank you for explaining that to me. You're absolutely right. We need to take care of you. We need to give you some stuff to make sure you're okay. It's like, and usually at that point I would take out some money and be like, do you need a couple of dollars? You okay? Got enough money to get something to eat today? Because at some point, what are they arguing? They're aggressively arguing. No, I'm a victim. No, I'm a victim. I'm a victim. At some point, go, oh, you know what? You're right. You are a victim. And then start describing what a victim is. And suddenly they start, like, oh, well, I didn't say all that, So that's the idea of it. When you were raised to be a slave, it's so easy to just identify as the moral superior just because you're the one who happens to be losing. All right? James Chen writes, what's up, James? He says, well, with the exception of Sarah Connor in the Terminator series, she definitely allowed what happened to her to shape her path. Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember, what was it? Terminator 2, T2. I went to see that with my dad and my cousin in Bay Plaza movie theaters in the Bronx. And I remember seeing how jacked Linda Hamilton was for that. It's fucking perfect. But it's like, yeah, that's how that happens, by the way. That's how that happens, right? And I think that was, in response to what I was talking about when somebody brings up that they were molested as a child or something. It's like, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Nothing that you consider valuable in your capabilities came to you any other way than a process that was laden with pressure. If you say, what was your, the value to describe your life, the bullet points of your life, I guarantee you will just name all the times you've overcome something. You've acquired something through being stronger than the forces against you at that given time. That's how we identify things, because that's how value really works, right? So number 5, you were raised as a slave. All right, number 4. Let's get to number 4. Number 4, it gives you the illusion of control, right? So the premise here is, these are the reasons that you're addicted to politics. It gives you the illusion of control. So many people, and you guys know this, online, this is the bulk of, it's not limited to online, but online is where this weakness flourishes. You'll have individuals that in their actual life, in their real life, they're powerless. They haven't done anything. They haven't built anything. And because they haven't done anything, and because when they sort of face the real world, they're reminded that they haven't done anything, they opt instead for this world that they can't touch, but that can't touch them. Here's a point when it comes to arguing politics. If you lose a political argument, you get nothing. If you win a political argument, you still get nothing. So whether you are winning political arguments or you are losing political arguments, you are not any stronger as a result of it, because it's not anchored to the real world. You are just better at an abstract game or an abstract exercise than the person you're engaging, or they're better than you. It doesn't really matter. So arguing politics, when you have somebody who in the real world, nobody respects him, nobody seeks him out for help or guidance because they don't see him as being valuable or having any utility, and he could see that in his real world and then turn and say, well, you know what? I know some shit about this topic. Or nowadays, it's like, I'm going to have Google or ChatGPT argue, like I'm going to argue with somebody and then you have two people. It's like one of the fucking funny things where now you'll have two people just like arguing like their ChatGPT accounts against one another. And because it's so easily sort of artificially reproduced or artificially substituted, it just shows how useless it is. Right? Remember the commercial? I think it was a Geico commercial. So easy a caveman could do it. It's like arguing on the internet is so easy, AI could do it. So what is actually your value? Because most of us, by the way, we would lose to ChatGPT in a debate on a specific topic that's anchored in a real world. Right? Because it's just processing, recollection and processing. Like it's just, it doesn't sort of move the needle of reality. Right? So the number 4 reason you're addicted to politics, it gives you the illusion of control. Number 3, why are you addicted? Because it feels good to be a dragon-free hero. It feels good to be a dragon-free hero. I've explained to you guys before the idea of, in the modern world, you have people that want to be heroes, but a hero has to slay a dragon. The problem with slaying a dragon is that it's a fucking dragon. It'll kill you. It could eat you. In order to become a hero, then, you need to have a scenario where there is a dragon to begin with. That dragon needs to be a threat to your people, and you decide individually to confront this threat at great risk to yourself. So not only, this is the process of becoming a hero, there needs to be a dragon. The dragon needs to threaten your people. The dragon's not threatening your people. You're not a hero, you're a conqueror, right? A hunter, a predator. Right? Dragon's not fuck with anybody, and you kill a dragon, you're not a hero. You're a dragon hunter, right? So not only is it threatening your people, but you need to sort of bear the weight of that threat on your own and say, I am going to confront the dragon and attempt to slay the dragon. So there needs to be a dragon. He's threatening your people. You need to then say, well, because he's threatening my people, I'm going to go take care of him. And then you need to expose yourself to the dangers that the dragon represents. Then you have to slay the dragon. Once you slay the dragon, you are now a hero, because slaying the dragon in that context is heroic. So what happens today? People want to be heroes, but they don't want to do heroic shit. They just want the label, They just want the label. So what do? They say this is a dragon. And this is a dragon, and I'm going to explain to you why this dragon, this thing that I labeled the dragon, I'm going to explain to you why it is a threat to my people. And then I'm going to engage the dragon, and I'm going to overcome the dragon. And at the end of it, everybody has to call me a hero. That's the deal. But it's never really a dragon. They just decided to label it a dragon. So why do people do this? Because it feels good. Why are you arguing online, arguing on Instagram, on fucking Facebook, or whatever? You could be at the fucking the gym or the train station or the barbershop, wherever it is. It feels good. Why? Because you feel like a warrior. You feel like you're risking something. You feel like you're confronting a legitimate threat, but nothing is being risked. There's nothing lost. There's nothing gained when you win. It becomes performative. A lot of times when you're somebody who does this, your tribe, the people that the dragon's supposed to be threatening, the tribe are just all the people that agree with you. They're strangers, people that you're not connected to in any real way. And then what winds up happening is, you guys remember me years ago, I said, what are my 2 goals in life? A strong legacy and a good death. Well, a legacy, what's your legacy if you're the guy that slays arguments, or debaters on the internet on topics of politics? Your legacy is a bunch of shit online that people forget about. You have these temporary, almost disposable artificial alliances because nothing that you're doing touches the real world. So again, number 3, why you're addicted to politics. It feels good to be a dragon-free hero. Comments. Roderick says, to be a hero, I need to slay the politician. Kidding, of course. We both are. Well, I would say this. I'll use this example. I remember years ago, I got in a little bit of trouble. I won't say how, but I got a little bit of trouble. A little bit of one of these. Because I was talking about Angela Merkel and what she was doing to Germany. And basically allowing, everybody to come to Germany from places, that did not really indicate that they would assimilate to German culture, right? And I said, the only reason this is happening is because there's no real world consequence. And it's the truth. Everybody starts paying attention when motherfuckers start getting shot. That's how it works. Now, I'm not advocating for that, obviously. But historically, I won't limit it to that one application. I'll just say generally, if people don't have consequence, yet they're receiving a benefit, what is it that you think that is the reason they should stop? These fucking immigrants, they come here and they collect welfare and they don't work and they do all these things. I don't know how they, how they do that or why they. It's like, well, why do you think they're doing it? The answer is always because they can. Because it's like, do it, get benefits, no consequence. People I don't know don't like me. Who gives a fuck? Or don't do it and suffer and have to struggle and have a lot more uncertainty. And it's like, what are we even talking about here? Right? No, I'm not going to get into that one little side thing. Right? There you go. Focus, motherfucker. Elliot says, I agree with you. Let the dumb be the dumb. I don't know exactly what that was, but I'm glad that we agree. Right. So number 3, it feels good to be a dragon-free hero. Number 2, the number 2 reason you're addicted to politics. Let's get it. If I can find the right damn button. Here we go. You forgot that power starts at home. You forgot that power starts at home. Your house has no leader. Your body is weak. Your marriage is fragile. Your children don't respect you, don't know what a warrior looks like, don't know what strength is. But man, you got these opinions, right? These opinions. I have all these opinions, though. All those things are happening in my life, but man, I got these opinions. And I gotta put these opinions somewhere. I got these opinions about like what's going on in the world. I got these opinions that somebody who is actually worth the shit could do something about. Right? Like, I have all these things that I can't change, but man, I really want to share with you what I think about them. There's a sort of a level of self-accountability whereby if you don't have your own shit squared away, why the fuck are you venturing off engaging topics that represent such higher level of influence to be able to touch remotely? Like, it becomes delusional at some point. You just don't understand why they're doing it unless it's an avoidance, right? It's a coping mechanism. So why are people addicted to arguing politics? They forgot that power starts at home. It's like, to them, it's like, oh man, that's too hard though. Fucking everything's fucked up. My wife hates me. My kids, don't respect me. My life around me is falling. Like, nah, I'd just rather, if I get this right, then I'll be connected to something powerful. Having strong, even correct positions on global, political happenings when it comes to absolute value for the individual, it's no different than winning the right football team at the beginning of the season. This football team's going to win the Super Bowl, and then you're right. It's like, wow, that was really insightful. It's also absolutely fucking useless. There needs to be some consequence. But if it's trying to find power that you're doing it, most people tend to forget, and this is number 2, that power starts at home. I am not a fan of Jordan Peterson. I like a lot of his stuff. I'm not a fan of him. But when he talks about, cleaning your room, he's on to something there, right? Because there is a, think of TRIBALNOMICS. It starts with the self-alliance. Who you are at a level of self is the identity that is going to add context to the value of alliances. And those two are going to then inform how you're going to move to create value in the world. It's like, what are you going to do for a living? Well, who are you and who are you connected to? It's hard to answer that first question if we don't understand the context, right? So power starts at home. Aaron writes, heard of a chick over that way in Europe who was about to get sexually assaulted in some manner, so she used pepper spray and she got in trouble. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you at this point, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but the examples of countries betraying their own citizens are just too numerous to sort of list at this point. So then you'd have to ask yourself, well, how could that be? Why is that? Or you get the thing where it's people say it's not fair, right? The fairies, that's what we call them. Remember, something is only fair or not fair based on a set of rules. If you are experiencing some sort of event, some sort of catastrophe, some sort of trauma, and your reaction is this isn't fair, I would argue that more times than not, it's not that it's not fair, it's just that you don't understand the rules. It's absolutely fair. You just misinterpreted what the rules were. I don't do this very often, personally, because I tend to follow the one rule of might is right. And everything else is a permutation or a structure that is built on top of that foundation. It's like, what are the rules? Physics. I want to know the rules to life. Here you go. Hand him a fucking physics book, right? This is the best I got right now. Might is right is an interpretation of that. But when you start thinking, oh, this person was supposed to do this. Oh, were they? They were supposed to do this. They were supposed to do that. We had a pretty powerful talk this morning on my mastermind call about death. And not to get into the specifics, but I brought up like one of the things that I'm always experiencing on TV shows and movies, like when somebody, gets hurt, injured, shot or something like that, and they get brought to the doctor, and then there's that whole, the people are waiting in the waiting room, and then the doctor comes out, takes off the the face mask or the hood or whatever, and it's like, Doc, is he gonna make it? And doctor's like, he's gonna make it. He's gonna pull through. The bullet went straight through. The spike was lodged next to his spine, but we got it out. He's gonna make a full recovery. In my head, I'm always like, well, no, he's not. Like, he's not gonna make it. Like, it's just that he's not gonna die today, right? So that's one of the perennial things that I'm always keeping, connected to the context of experience. It's like, by the way, nobody makes it out of this, right? So we're all going to die eventually. So there's a certain point where we have to ask ourselves, well, what are the rules we're playing by? And are they congruent with the experiences I have and the feedback I get from the circumstances I'm in? But when you start developing these abstract entitlements, it's like, okay, you're like the little kid, the 3-4-year-old who's in their bed, and they think there's a monster in their closet, and they put a blanket over their head to hide from the monster. Because, not to shit on 3 or 4-year-olds, but it's kind of, it makes sense to a 3 or 4-year-old mind. Never mind the fact that it's fucking retarded that somebody would think a blanket would stop a monster, right? So it doesn't, but we understand the story of it. And we allow that to be we allow that to sort of be valid because it's coming from the mind of a 4-year-old. But when people are getting robbed and raped and murdered, and their reaction is, this isn't fair. Why would you do this? How could this be happening? It's like, what do you mean, how could this be happening? Did the guy fucking teleport here and shoot lasers out of his hands? No, he pretty much did something that many people have done. Many people have done this, and you've been aware of it. You understand that this is a thing. So who are you fucking speaking to right now? Right? It just doesn't make logical sense. It does not make logical sense. Corey writes, all Western countries are experiencing the kind of problems you see just before the collapse of a civilization because most people are too individualized. The concept of tribalism is foreign to most. So I think this is a perfect segue into number one. So let me get to number one, and then I will comment on that comment. But I appreciate that quote. So let's get to the number one reason why you're addicted to politics. You've abandoned your will to power, right? So this year, the theme of PressureCon is will to power. I'm taking this concept, this Nietzschean concept, and applying it to a modern man's life. The whole idea of it is, I am going to show you where you are a very capable slave, and how where you are a capable slave, it has gotten you into trouble at higher levels of scale. So I want to bring back Corey's comment. Where is it? So again, all Western countries are experiencing the kind of problems you see just before the collapse of a civilization because most people are too individualized. The concept of tribalism is foreign to most. I don't think it is the case of individualization. I think it is the case of an alliance that is artificial. So they do have tribes, but the tribes are formed on artificial grounds. People feel entitled at a level that has never been experienced in human history. People are so entitled that they think they're supposed to get health care. Like, I think it was Rand Paul who said, the idea that you're entitled to health care, one of the things that people don't realize is you're saying that another person can be compelled to have to help you. So if somebody is a doctor, to say that healthcare is a right and you are entitled to it, that means that that doctor has some of his agency, some of his free will taken away. His ability to make his own decisions, because this is an entitled right. So most people say things like that and they don't understand how that actually meets reality, what that looks like once you start implementing it. And I think that is the heart of the problem. So I would say that I agree that they are too individualized, but not for the reason that on the surface it would appear to be. I think they have tribes that are so fragile, weak, and or artificial that it's almost like a house of cards, or if we were to make a ladder out of twigs, like whatever other analogy I can make for something that we expect to be sturdy, strong, and reliable, but when we actually pressurize it and look to count on it, it collapses. I think they're individualized and they don't know it, in other words, right? So the idea of it is, and I remember it was 10 years ago, I made Function First, was one of my power programs. And the premise of Function First is you had the artificial life, you had the natural life, and then you had the ritualized natural life, or the natural ritual life. This is where most of us are, right? Some of us are living the natural life. That's the guy that's on a fishing boat in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the woods, collecting rainwater and eating fucking pigeons. I don't know. This is my subconscious gave me. Those are the ones living the natural life. It's where people prior to civilization, Western civilization, how they lived with the land, right? A self-sustained loop. The artificial life, right, is the person who everything in their reality is anchored to a structure based in artificiality. It's people who live in the city. It's somebody who lives in a studio apartment in the middle of Manhattan who pays $2,000 a month, and he is a computer programmer, and the money he makes in computer programming is about to be eliminated because as soon as AI agents can do what he does, he now has absolutely no value, but he has this $2,000 a month rent for this little studio. Like, he is in a bubble. And that's what the artificial life is, right? So when you have people who don't ritualize nature, right? So what would be a good thing for that particular guy, right? Let me take this down. So the guy who lives in that artificial environment, he should ritualize nature. So he should lift weights. He should have a tribe. He should put himself in the woods, put himself on the ocean, connect with the natural world. I've shared before a story that was shared with me with a guy about a guy who was from the city and was doing some training in the woods. And this city guy, when it started getting dark out, had never experienced natural nighttime and started freaking out, started flipping out, because if you think it gets dark and you live in the city, you don't understand what dark is. You go in the middle of the woods on a night when the moon ain't out, you understand what dark is. It feels like you're trapped in a never-ending closet, right? So the idea is the person who ritualizes that is the one that's most capable of pivoting and rebounding when his artificial source of resources falls apart, when it collapses. And then it's like, all right, good while it lasted, on to the next thing. Right? So that's the difference between them. Elliot says, I spoke to a rich man, and although he is right-wing, he said the goal is to grind in any administration. The key is to pivot and be stronger. Absolutely. Absolutely right. Roderick asks, so are you saying artificial tribes are those formed only by ideas and not by actions? Absolutely. The group of people that agree with you online in some, membership group or some, fucking subreddit or something, take away the computer and you've collapsed every single connection you have. Like, power goes out, nobody has a computer, none of those people exist anymore. I once had a coaching student, he still coaches with me to this day, who he was running into some obstacles. He was trying to get himself a little bit more focused, to be a little bit more productive. He had a lot of potential, and he knew he wasn't really leveraging that. Little abstraction in that, but I think you guys get what I'm saying. And one of the first things I asked him, I said, does he have any friends where he's at? He didn't live where he grew up. And he goes, yeah, I got a friend. This is, this guy so-and-so. I'm like, who is he to you? How do you know him? Because you're not from there. So, he's my supervisor at work. You're friends with him? Yeah, we get along. He's a good guy. I said, all right. I said, you ever been to his house? No. You ever been to your house? No. Does he have kids? Yeah. What are their names? I don't know. You ever meet his kids? No. He had a girlfriend at the time. He wasn't married yet. Did he meet your girlfriend? No. Did you meet his wife? No. Well, why is it that you're calling him a friend again? Why? Because it's like, that's the guy. So I guess you're it. I guess you're the friend, right? There's a certain point where if we don't have a criteria that exists devoid of relativity, then we're just going to label shit because we got extra labels. It's like, okay, you'll be my friend. You'll be my brother. She'll be my wife. Like, we just have more labels than we need. So an artificial tribe is exactly the type of connection where people are connected by ideas, by abstractions, not something that can stand against resilience, can stand against a certain amount of being pressured. It doesn't only have to be online, by the way. An artificial tribe could be your baseball team that you hang out with. Here you guys are performing a ritual in the real world, but the context of it is this game. It would almost be inappropriate to ask them how their health is, how their family's doing, to help them out with struggles that they're having, like the life issues, the things that brothers would help you with. It would almost be inappropriate there. That is also, we could say, an artificial tribe. Another word that I have for artificial tribe is syndicate, where it is a group alliance that maybe produces value, right? But the value is the entirety of the purpose of the alliance. It's not the legacy. It's not a group alliance that you would eventually sacrifice for. Right? Hope that makes sense. Jamie writes, ideological agreement doesn't help a man move a heavy couch. That's right. Oh, right on. So, all right, let's summarize here. These are the top 7 reasons you're addicted to politics. Number 7, you lost contact with real-world consequence. Number 6, it lets you blame the world instead of yourself. Number 5, you've been raised as a slave. Number 4, it gives you the illusion of control. Number 3, it feels good to be a dragon-free hero. Number 2, you forgot that power starts at home. And the number 1 reason, you've abandoned your will to power. All right, guys. Well, man, we hit a little over an hour. Man, we went at it today. A great talk. I appreciate you guys hanging out and participating. I think I put down what I wanted to. I think you guys are picking it up. But you guys that are here now, I will be here as always, next week. But make sure you guys are getting my emails. Make sure you are signed up, reading them. I send them every day, talking about some stuff. And that's that. I got 4 things in my head. That's why I'm sounding like my fucking batteries are running out. But I appreciate you guys. Good talk. I'll be here next week. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.